Hi, I'm Eric Siegel with ericstrains.com. All right, folks, here it is. By popular demand, you've been asking for this for years, and so today we're going to be taking a look at the new 3-rail O-scale Amtrak EMD F40PH from Lionel. All right, so let's go over some history on the F40PH. The F40PH is a 4-axle BB diesel-electric locomotive built by EMD in several variants between 1975 and 1992. Originally intended for use on Amtrak's short-haul passenger routes, it eventually became the backbone of Amtrak's diesel fleet after the failure of the EMD SD P40F and the GE P30CH. As most of you know, Amtrak was formed in 1971, and in the years immediately after its formation, Amtrak relied on the aging and mechanically incompatible fleet of diesel locomotives that it had inherited from the various private railroads that had preceded its formation. So to replace these, Amtrak ordered 150 EMD SDP-40F locomotives, which began entering service in 1973, and they also ordered 25 GE P30CH locomotives, which entered service in 1975. Well, the SDP-40F was a problem child from the get-go, and problems with weight distribution led to a series of derailments in the mid-1970s. Meanwhile, the poor truck design of the P30CH kept Amtrak from ordering more of those, and so in the spring of 1975, Amtrak found itself needing more short and medium-distance locomotives. So the first batch of 30 F40PHs entered service on April 9, 1976, hauling short to medium-length routes, but its superior performance eventually led to it being a workhorse on Amtrak's longer routes as well. Eventually, that initial fleet of 30 F40PHs would grow to a total of 216, and it would prove so reliable that by the early 1990s, only 4 of them had been retired. The F40PH also proved popular on other railroads too, and became quite common on commuter railroads in the US and Canada. By the time it was all said and done, over 500 F40PHs were manufactured. Amtrak retired its fleet of F40PHs in the mid-1990s in favor of the GE Genesis, but the locomotive remains a mainstay of Via Rail's long-distance trains, and it is also a common sight on many other commuter railroads throughout the United States. In addition, Amtrak has kept a number of de-engined F40PHs in use as cab cars. Now let's talk about Lionel's rendition of the F40PH. Lionel offered this model in their 2016 Volume 1 catalog, and then these things arrived in mid-2017. Now Lionel has made 7 different versions of the F40PH available for sale. 6 of them are done in an Amtrak paint scheme. The other one is done in a CSX paint scheme. Now of the 6 Amtrak units, 2 of them are done in a Phase 2 paint scheme like we have here, and both of those units have the window guards up front. We'll talk more about those later. They also did 2 of these powered units in a Phase 3 paint scheme. Now, if you remember a minute ago, I said that when Amtrak retired these engines, they kept some of them in service as engineless cab control units, and so Lionel has actually modeled this. They've made 2 cabbage units available in Phase 3 paint schemes. Now let's go over some stats on this model. The length of the engine without the couplers is just under 14 inches. The weight is 3 pounds 14 ounces. This engine has 1 pound 12 ounces of pulling power, and the minimum required curve needed to run this engine is 0.54. Under the hood, this engine is driven by 2 large flywheel motors. There's a fan-driven smoke unit for the smokestack, and then you'll also find the electronics for legacy rail sounds and legacy command control. As usual, there are 3 ways to operate this engine. The preferred method, of course, is to use Lionel's legacy command system, as that will give you access to all of the engine's advanced features. However, you can also run this engine with Lionel's classic TMCC command system, or you can run this engine conventionally with just a transformer and some track. As we move in for a closer look, here we have the front pilot, and as you can see, it looks pretty good. We've got some nice add-on hoses on both sides of the coupler. We've got some hand-painted detailing going on. We've got an add-on metal coupler cut bar up here. We've got this nice plow attachment. There's some nice step detail on both sides. And then, of course, in the middle, we've got the electro coupler that can be thrown from the Legacy or TMCC remote. Now, this engine is equipped with the Lionel kinematic pilots that move like that as the engine goes around curves. I talked about these in detail in the last product review that I did for the Lionel SD45. So if you want to find out more about these kinematic pilots, just watch that video. As we round the corner, you can see one of the nice die-cast metal truck side frames on these trucks. And if I turn it up a bit, you can get a better view of it. There we go. Looks really good. And then right here, we've got a metal step coming down from the cab. And then right here, we've got a legible builder's plate. In the middle here, we've got some nicely detailed air tanks. There's a service box here. And then we've got the fuel tank with some hand-painted details going on. The side frames on the rear truck are pretty much identical to the ones on the front truck, except they're lacking that step that comes down from the cab. And here's the rear pilot, which looks pretty much the same as the front pilot, except that it's missing that plow attachment. And just like on the front, we've got the kinematic pilot action going on here. Moving up on the back of the engine, we've got this nice handrail going across. There's a metal safety chain here in the middle. There's safety tread on the walkway. Right here, there's a porthole window. We've got some sand fill cap detailing here and here. We've got some add-on metal grab irons. There's an operating backup light right here in the middle. And then on the corners, we've got operating marker lights. Moving down the side, we've got a metal grab iron right here. The paint job on this engine is perfect. I couldn't find any flaws. We've got some nice metal grill work up here and lots of nice molded in detailing. Moving down, it's pretty much more of the same, but right here, I'm not sure if you can see it, but they've got a couple doors that are molded into the plastic. They don't open, but you can see the hinges and so forth. Well, on the cabbage unit that Lionel is also selling, right here, there's a garage door looking door because when Amtrak converted some of their F40PHs to cabbage units, they didn't have engines, and so they would use all the space inside to store baggage. And so on the cabbage units, they've got a baggage door right here. Moving on to the cab area, on either side of the door, we've got these add-on metal grab irons. The doors don't open, but they do have clear plastic inserts in them. And then you can see we've got these steps down here. The windows of the cab all have clear plastic inserts, and then on the interior of the cab there are two hand-painted crew figures. The interior of the cab is illuminated, and that light does turn off when the engine starts moving. But what's really cool about these F40PHs is that inside the cab they've actually got a decent-looking control panel for the engineer, and the gauges on the control panel actually light up. Up front, we've got add-on metal grab irons all over the place. We've also got a couple of add-on sand fill caps up here. We've got an operational headlight down here in the middle. And then up here, we've got lighted number boards and operational marker lights on either side. Now, you'll notice that the front windows on this engine look a little strange, and that's because they're sporting protective screens, commonly called ghetto guards. And the reason for these screens was because when these engines would go through the more seedy, crime-ridden areas of certain cities, well, kids and other people with nothing better to do would hurl rocks and bricks and so forth at these engines, and so to prevent damage to the windshields and injury to the crews, they installed these protective screens. Now, of the 7 F40PHs that Lionel is offering, only 2 have the protective screens, number 200 that we have here, and then the Phase 2 number 207. The rest have normal windows. Up on top here, up front, we've got a nice looking horn, and then right here and here we've got flashing safety lights, and then behind that we've got some nice molded in details and some add-on metal lift rings. Behind that, we've got the smokestack, and as I said earlier, there is a fan-driven smoke unit down in there. And of course, to load smoke fluid into the smoke unit, you simply pour the smoke fluid directly down the stack. And then behind that, we've got a bunch of fans, and the fan blades inside each one of these do spin freely. The back 3 fans here are part of a panel that lifts out. So let's go ahead and do that. There we go. And let's take a look at what's inside. So right here we've got the space for the optional 9-volt battery. And by the way, you only need the backup battery if you're going to run this engine conventionally. If you run it with Legacy or TMCC, you do not need the backup battery. Right here, we've got one of the 2 flywheel motors. And then right here, this is the master volume control for the engine. Then we've got the run program switch. Below that, we've got an unusual switch. This is called the unit pair switch. I'll explain more about that in just a second. And then below that, we've got the switch that turns the smoke unit on and off. So the unit pair switch, what's that all about? Well, it has to do with the non-powered cabbage units that Lionel is also selling. Typically, the cabbage unit goes at the opposite end of the train from the powered unit. So if you buy one of these powered units and then you also buy a non-powered cabbage unit, you'd put this at the front of the train, the cabbage unit at the rear of the train, and then using this unit pair switch, you can make them so they will function as one engine. So right now it's in unit mode, which means I've just got one engine by itself. If I had a non-powered unit, which I don't have, I would put it in pair mode. Then I would assign the same ID to both the powered unit and the cabbage unit in my TMCC or Legacy system, and then they would function as one engine. So if I change directions, the lights on the rear unit would come on. If I fired the rear coupler, the coupler on the rear unit would fire. So it's pretty cool like that. Now, I don't have a non-powered unit to test this with or to demonstrate it with, but if I do get one in the future, I'll be happy to do a video showing this function. But for now, if you want to find out more, just read about it in the instructions that come with the engine when you buy it. Here's a look at the underside of the engine. We've got 4 pickup rollers, 2 per truck, that's good. We've got 2 traction tires on the inner axle of each truck for a total of 4. All wheels on this engine are driven. Right here is the sensor for the Lionel LCS sensor track if you choose to use one. And then right here we've got the speaker for the sound system. All right, the last thing we're going to do before we start this thing up is BFIMO, best feature in my opinion. Well, my pick for best feature this time around may seem a little weird, but I really like these window guards up front, these ghetto guards as they're commonly called. I think it's a really cool touch, and you know, I think if Lionel had made this model in years past, they probably wouldn't have bothered, but the fact that they put them on there means that they went the extra step in making this engine just a little more realistic, and that really deserves to be acknowledged. And also, these things are just cool. It adds a little bit of urban grittiness and danger that the model otherwise wouldn't have, and that makes them really cool in my book. All right, now comes the fun part. Let's go ahead and start it up.
This is the dispatcher. Do you copy?
I copy that. Over.
Very good. Start up and hold.
Yes, sir. We'll fire her up. Out.
Okay, first up, let's check out the horn. Next up, let's check out the bell. thing was all the way up on the roof with the RPMs, the bass was so tremendous that it was actually vibrating the fan blades inside the fans. It's pretty cool. Lastly, let's check out the crew talk sounds.
Dispatcher here, please hold. Over.
Yes, sir. Holding for a signal. Out.
Dispatcher here, you're cleared outbound. Over.
Clear signal. Very good. Out. My fuel's at 3/4. Out. Dispatcher, am I cleared to the outbound? Over.
Negative, please stand by. Over.
Yes, sir. Holding for a signal. Out. Tower, still have a stop signal. What's the plan? Can we move? Over.
Roger that. Take the green. Over.
That's great. We're good to go. Out. Tower, stopped and ready to cut off. Over.
Copy that. You're on your mark. Out.
Okay, we're ready to roll it out. Now, behind the F40PH, I've got the Lionel 21-inch passenger cars that Lionel offered in the same 2016 Volume 1 catalog. Although, if you look closely, I've also snuck in an Atlas California Zephyr car as well. Anyway, let's go ahead and roll it out. All right, that about wraps it up for this review. This is a pretty cool little engine, and it's definitely a good fit if you're running Amtrak on your layout, and especially if you're running Amtrak through the bad part of town. Now, if you're interested in purchasing one of these, the retail price is right at $550, although if you go through a good Lionel dealer, you should be able to get a bit of a discount off that retail price. And as always, if you're looking for a good Lionel dealer, try my favorite train store, which is Legacy Station. You can find them on the web at www.legacystation.com or give them a call at 770-339-7780. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm Eric Siegel, and I'll see you next time. To discuss this model or any other O-Gauge trains and to meet other O-Gauge modelers, check out the O-Gauge Railroading Magazine online forum at ogrforum.ogaugerr.com.